Happening now on Grid Tonight, the chairman of Ferrari is calling out his Formula One drivers. Was this a way to hold Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc accountable, or was he totally out of line? Corey Day will run full-time with Hendrick Motorsports next year in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Is a young dirt racing star ready for this big opportunity? And Jamie Whincup, he's stepping down from his co-driving role for the endurance races and supercars next year. Have we seen the last of the 7-time series champion behind the wheel? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Matt White. Now here's Joshua, our top story this evening. Once again, another busy motorsports news week.
Indeed. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm glad to be back. Let's see how long this lasts on battery power. So, Ferrari Chairman John Elkann has criticised Formula One drivers Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton after a double retirement from the Sao Paulo Grand Prix at Interlagos. Now, Hamilton retired from the race after his car suffered damage to the front wing when he got into the rear of Franco Colapinto's Alpine. His teammate Leclerc was just an innocent bystander as Oscar Piastri collided with Kimi Antonelli, who ended up crashing into Leclerc and forcing the Ferrari driver to lose a wheel. Now, with 3 races remaining, Ferrari might have its first winless season since 2021. However, Lewis Hamilton won the sprint race at Shanghai in March. As Ferrari haven't been able to keep up with Red Bull, mainly, of course, Max Verstappen, Mercedes and McLaren, the constructors, Elkann lashed out at Hamilton and Leclerc on camera in front of reporters. Now, Elkann said that Brazil was a huge disappointment. If we look at the Formula One Championship, we can say that on one hand, we have mechanics who actually are winning the championship with their performance and everything they've done on the pit stops. Now, he continued to say, if we look at our engineers, there's no doubt that the car has improved. If we look at the rest, it's not up to par. We certainly have drivers for whom it's important that they focus on driving and talk less, because we still have important races ahead of us, and it's not impossible to get second place in the Constructors' Championship. Now, as a result of him saying that Hamilton and Leclerc spend too much time talking instead of driving the car, both drivers posted the following statements on their social media pages. Lewis Hamilton posted, "I back my team, I back myself. I will not give up, not now, not then, not ever. Thank you, Brazil, always." And Charles Leclerc posted, "A very difficult weekend in Sao Paulo. Disappointed to come back home with nearly no points at all for the team in what is a critical moment of the season to fight for second place in the Constructors' Championship. It's uphill from now, and it's clear that only unity can help us turn this situation around in the last 3 races. We give it all as always." Now, Elkann also said, "When Ferrari as a team, we win, to both as a constructor and as drivers in the WEC. Of course, it's a beautiful demonstration that when Ferrari is united, when everyone is together, you can achieve great things." Now, of course, he was referring to Ferrari F Corsa team in the FI1 Endurance Championships hypercar class, who won the championship last weekend after the 8 hours of Bahrain. Now, Ferrari is doing well in hypercar, won Le Mans overall again, that's their 3rd one in a row, and got to celebrate its first major sports car racing title in over 5 decades. Now, according to Nate Saunders from ESPN, a Ferrari spokesperson said that Elkann's comments were made to be constructive. The link to this article is in the video description below, and the photos courtesy of Ferrari. Kobe, starting with you on this one as well. First of all, pit stops. Ferrari pit stops, no, half the time the strategy has not been the best. But was the Ferrari chairman totally in the wrong to call out his F1 drivers, especially in this manner?
Yeah, Josh, I thought it was unnecessary to make these type of comments towards his drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. And I think that most F1 teams out there, they would kill to have a driver of a Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc in their driver lineup, and to be making these comments, it's definitely not constructive at all. It's honestly destructive to be calling out the drivers. As you mentioned, Josh, Ferrari has a plethora of issues, that go well beyond the drivers themselves. And if the drivers are talking, I'm not sure what he's referring to. The only time you hear the drivers, really said anything, like in relation to the team, is over the radio. If you like listen to like some of the things they're saying on the radio, they're like saying like this and that is wrong with the car. They're trying to get feedback so you can build a better car. So I don't really understand those comments that John Elkann has made towards Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. And I kind of previewed, this story a couple of nights ago on One Final Lap for the Grid Encore show when I said, is this not Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys, calling out Micah Parsons, when they were having their little, back and forth during their contract disputes. And up and dribble. It was just so ridiculous. See, someone who is supposed to be a quote unquote leader at Ferrari calling out his players or drivers, in this type of situation. And I really hate the fact, that this story is, dominating what should have been a good weekend for Ferrari in general, and obviously not from the F1 side of things, but to win, the Hypercar Championship and the World Endurance Championship and taking on the manufacturer's title as well. That's a big deal for Ferrari, to win a major championship like that. And is also disrespectful to their three drivers as well, who ended up winning, that World Championship there. I believe it was Alessandro Perguidi, Antonio Giovinazzi, and James Galato, because now nobody is talking about their victory in the World Endurance Championship, and also, what's been a great season for Ferrari, winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans overall again with their factory supported operation at number 83. So I feel like that, these comments were very out of line and out of touch, and it's going to be interesting to see how Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc respond moving forward. But I think both of their social media posts that we flashed on the screen a short while ago, that they just wanted to let themselves know that, yeah, John, we heard what you said, but, we're just going to continue to do what we're doing because, like you're saying, Josh, there's a lot of things that are wrong with Ferrari, well beyond the drivers. I don't think the drivers are the problem at all. I think the guy who spoke might be a part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, Kobe. Hello, Josh. Evening, everybody. The drivers are only doing what they're instructed to do, which is drive the car as fast as possible and talk to the media when they've been asked questions. And that's what they're doing. And then suddenly here from the gods comes comments from the god. It's a bit soccer, this, isn't it? This is the chairman giving the vote of confidence to the manager. It's happened at Norwich City not so long ago when Liam Manning got the confidence, the vote from the chairman, and 3 weeks later he was sacked. So are we going to see Fred Vasseur getting the boot at the end of the season? It would strike me as strange, considering we're about to go into a huge, probably the biggest in quite some time, development change in Formula One with the rules package going into next season, which is why one of the reasons why the Ferrari isn't going as well as some of the other cars, because they're not spending money and time updating this particular car. They've fallen behind pretty much a one-man team in Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship over the weekend. More on Max, I'm sure, when we get to Hots and Knots later, and Red Bull for that matter. But as you mentioned, Josh, Leclerc, innocent bystander in his retirement at the weekend. Again, it just seems to be quite often that Charles is catching the hot potato when it falls his way and it scalds his hand. And Hamilton, that was a bit of a silly mistake, of course, crashing into the back of, or clipping the back of Colapinto, damaging his car quite substantially. And the floor was hugely damaged on that Ferrari where he swallowed his own front wing. And then he had to do the rest of the race with a damaged car and then ended up retiring. So a shame. It's not been Ferrari's season as you documented. Well, just that one sprint win, which seems like a million years ago when we were at Shanghai for round 2 of the season, many reasons. But it's strange that they're not, well, it doesn't look like, unless something falls in their lap over these next 3 races, you can't see. I don't know, maybe Mercedes will do well in Las Vegas like they did last year, but you can't see really too far past more McLaren and or Max wins over these next 3 races of the season to finish it off. But yeah, it's disappointing. And what, as you say, Kobe, while the WEC program has been going great, substantially helped, some might say, by BOP, their F1 program has gently fallen down the hill. And let's hope for Ferrari's sake they don't start off next season like they did in 2009 when there was a huge regulation change and they were terrible and Kimi Räikkönen ended up getting the boot. So, yeah, much to be done at Ferrari over the winter.
Absolutely. Sticking with some comments. JT's watching, saying hello. Hello, JT. Watching on. Adam too, saying good evening, Kobe, Josh, Matt, and JT. Omi's in the background as well, waiting to dive in. It's Ferrari doing Ferrari things again, Adam says as well. Absolutely. And JT says, must be the drivers, not the team. Coming into it as well. And to be fair, Matthew Owens is here, says, can we move forward from this topic, please? I don't even want to hear anything from anybody at this organization.
He's waving his Ferrari flag.
Forza Ferrari. Got to talk about it, Mr. Owens. We do, because it was a big shocker. We can move to NASCAR players topic if you want, Matthew. We know you love it there.
There's going on in the comment section already.
Jeez, guys. What are we doing? Racing or ping pong? Come on, boys. So, anyway. Elkann has served in his role as Ferrari's chairman since the late 2018, following the passing as well of Sergio Marchionne. Now, we all know that Ferrari is hungry for success as they continue to work together towards bringing their long championship-winning drought to an end at the pinnacle of motorsport. Ferrari has not won a driver's title since 2007, and their last Constructors' Championship was in 2008. So we're inching closer to 2 full decades since Ferrari last won a major title in Formula One. Now, as James Pavey from Supercars.com pointed out on his X page, in 2005, Ferrari won 65 Grand Prix races with various drivers in the last 20 years. Since entering Formula One in 2015, Max Verstappen has won 68 Grand Prix victories, and he's also a 4-time world champion. Verstappen has accomplished more as an individual than Ferrari has as a team in 20 years. Now, in regards to Elkann's comments about his drivers needing to talk less and focus more on driving, 2009 Formula 1 champion Jenson Button said maybe Elkann should start leading by example. Now, Matt, Lewis Hamilton described his first season with Ferrari as a nightmare that he's been living for a while. What needs to be done to get Ferrari back to the promised land?
First of all, shout out to James Paves. What a legend that bike is. Second of all, I agree with Jenson Button. And third of all, we all knew it was going to be a struggle for Lewis Hamilton this year, and he's not there for this year. He's there for next year, which was the whole thing about coming in a whole season before, having a year with the team, getting used to all the things and bits and pieces, and then going again next season. From the beginning of the season, you could have said, well, Ferrari aren't going to be in this championship hunt. Either, since, I don't know, Imola, Monaco time in the spring, it was like, yeah, it's not going to be a Ferrari season. So, I don't know. You feel for Lewis because, of all the people that have gone there and done things pretty much since the Schumacher era, of course, Raikkonen winning the championship, Vettel and Alonso coming ever so close multiple times, both of them to winning a title or two, or even more for both of them, I suppose. That Fernando Alonso shot of him standing in the pit lane at Interlagos sprung to mind again over the weekend when Vettel won in 2012. It's just not happened, has it, for Hamilton? Even, there's been some little good spiky moments like that Shanghai sprint win, but other than that, it's just not been good. And even Leclerc, he's had a couple of pole positions and some second places, but it really has not been in a race winning position as such, really, apart from really at Monaco, where he was second. So, just not been Ferrari's year as a whole, really. And I think Hamilton, we kind of knew it was going to be a bit of a learning year for him, ready for next year. Let's hope that for all the Hamilton fans and for all the Ferrari fans, of which, of course, there is legion, Matthew in the comments, one being one of them, can hope for a big turnaround next season, because the grid might be all kinds of upside down and inside out once we get these new rules out for next year.
Yeah, with the new regulations coming in, there's no telling what the running order is going to be next year. Ferrari might get lucky and they might be the McLaren of this year and be the lead constructor and maybe get a driver's championship or a constructor's championship. But that's easier said than done, as Ferrari haven't done that in nearly 2 decades. And there's a reason why a lot of people joke and called Ferrari the Dallas Cowboys of Formula One, because, you know, you get all these high hopes every season that this will finally be your year. And then as you see the year go on, you just have to wait because it's not going to turn out their way. And yeah, I think that this year, you know, we probably didn't expect Ferrari to be up there, but like you said, Matt, Lewis Hamilton, you know, he's really there for next year. 2026 will be the big tell-all year for him. And if next year with under the new regulations is that same as this year or even worse, you know, then I guess that'll be a sign that Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari are not going to work out. But yeah, you certainly have to feel for him, you know, seeing how he said that this has been a nightmare of a year. And you have to think, you know, this is like really the first time in Lewis Hamilton's Formula One career that he's truly been in this position. I mean, towards the end of his Mercedes tenure, he was kind of, you know, similar, not super competitive, you know, and struggling to keep up. But, you know, you like to think, you know, that it's the car, you know, instead of like the driver declining or anything like that, you know, as Lewis has gotten older in the last few years. But if you've been, you know, one of the top drivers on the grid for so long, and then all of a sudden you don't really have a chance to fight for a win, I'm sure that's really hard, you know, on him mentally. But hopefully for his case and Charles Leclerc's case next season, that Ferrari can get this car right and give them a fighting chance, you know, to make the Tifosi proud and go out there and compete for race victories and podiums on a weekly basis, and maybe finally break that long drought and get their first driver's title since 2007 and first constructor's title since 2008. But I think all of that is easier said than done because, like I said in previous answer, Ferrari have a lot of stuff to do on the personnel side that they need to get right. And when you have leaders like John Elkann, you know, saying stuff like that, maybe you need new leadership as well. You know, at the very top of Ferrari, I'm not talking about at the top of the F1 program, you know, like a team principal and a Frederick Vasseur. I'm talking about people like the John Elkanns of the world. If that's the type of culture they have at Ferrari, I don't see how you can succeed. You know, when you have a culture when you're like berating your employees for a meaningless reason that makes entirely no sense. And Matt, when I was putting together the show for tonight, you mentioned about Fred Vasseur potentially getting sacked at the end of the year. He actually signed a contract extension at the end of July. Yeah, so maybe he won't get sacked. But as we know in motorsports these days, contracts mean absolutely nothing. I mean, and I forgot what sport it was recently, but it was in a different sport. I saw someone who had months ago, and then they're traded just a few months after that. Oh, I remember who it was. It was Sauce Gardner from the New York Jets in the NFL. He signed with the Jets, contract extension. Spring, and then he was traded a few months later despite signing that massive contract. So yeah. So despite Fred signing that contract, he could still potentially be out at the end of the year. Who really knows what's going to go on? But Ferrari definitely need changes on the personnel side.
Contracts worth as much as the actual piece of paper that they're written on.
Always are, aren't they? He needs to full year to adapt to the Ferrari with their shenanigans. Yeah, I think that's what we've all been saying as well in the commentary. The full year coming in, but I think Adam's put it brilliantly. If I had to give a grade for Lewis Hamilton to the Ferrari at the end of the first year, D-, things need to improve for 2026. His own mentality needs to improve as well. He's been very much down, even though he knew that this year wasn't a car built for him. So there's been a lot of negative around Lewis, and even the fans saying, remember why you do this, remember why you're racing for it as well. I think that's the last comment coming through. So we'll move on to the next story. Trackhouse Racing has announced some changes for its 2026 NASCAR Cup Series program. Ross Chastain will return to the number 1 Chevrolet, but he'll have a new crew chief as Phil Surgeon, as steps off the box to take on a different role within the organization. Now, Brandon McSwain will come over from Hendrick Motorsports to serve as Chastain's new crew chief. McSwain previously worked with William Byron's lead engineer with the number 24 team. As previously announced, Randall Burnett will work with the Cup Series rookie Connor Zilic, and we finally learn what number he'll be using. Maintaining his number from his time in the Xfinity Series, Zilic will take the number 88 Chevrolet to the Cup level and continue to build on that iconic NASCAR number legacy. And in a video posted by Trackhouse, his Xfinity Series team owner, Dale Earnhardt Jr., gave Zilic his blessing and support to run this number. Now, with Zilic in the number 88, this means that Shane Van Gisbergen will go back to the number he uses in his entire racing career, and one that means so much to the Van Gisbergen family. In 2026, SVG will drive the number 97 Chevrolet with crew chief Stephen Duran returning. And if you watch that Trackhouse video, as I mentioned, you'll see tears in SVG's eyes, remembering his late mom and hearing his dad, Robert Shane, hear their emotions on the number 97 in the Cup Series next year. The graphic courtesy of Trackhouse Racing. Matt, all is right with the world. I know you're going to think that as well, given the amount of success we saw with Zilich this year with the number 88 in the Xfinity Series and SVG's long history with the number 97. Did it just make sense for Trackhouse to align the drivers with these two car numbers?
Yeah, well, totally. It would feel strange for Connor to come up. Of course, let's go back a couple of weeks. He didn't win the Xfinity Championship, and we all know the reasons why. But if he'd come up as the champion in that number, it would have made sense for him to continue in that number. Don't forget, Dale Earnhardt also gave Shane Van Gisbergen blessing to use that number this year as well, the 88. But big year for Connor, as we've discussed multiple times, and we will do again in the pre-season for NASCAR heading into the 500 and so forth. But numbers don't really mean anything really in the actual grand scheme of the world terms, but he gets to come up with a big, well-known number, and he is going to be he's the next guy from the guy behind me, like proper, real hot shoe American kid coming through that's going to tear it up, as we expected Kyle Larson to do when he was coming in all those years ago when he was coming through and went to Ganassi. You mentioned the video, Josh, that Trackhouse posted. If you haven't seen it, once the show finishes here, of course, don't tune away from Grid Tonight. But if you haven't seen the Trackhouse video about the numbers, really beautifully put together with obviously the no change for Chastain, but for Connor to find out he was keeping 88 and Shane going from 88 to 97, which was always his number coming through. There was a long period when he was running number 9 when he was at Stone Brothers, but after that he got his number 97 after he'd retired and came back in supercars when he was in the VIP car, and then switching across to Red Bull. More on them in a moment as well. That was 97 throughout, and it was his childhood number, his dad's number when he was competing as well. So it is the family Van Gisbergen number, and it's going to be wonderful to see it back next year for Adam. I'm sure he's in the comments. He would have seen it all before SVG 97 everywhere, and Shane's kept his X Twitter handle as with the 97 in it throughout. So that doesn't need to change, but really lovely, really beautifully put together video from Trackhouse that wins the off-season NASCAR social media award for me already, and we're only in week 1 of the off-season. But yeah, going to be cool to see Shane back in the 97 for sure, and we all expect big things from Connor. And the crew chief changes are going to hopefully elevate Trackhouse forward throughout the year next year, because we need someone else up there challenging the big three.
Oh yeah, definitely as well, especially after the year we've had. SVG going back to the number 97 is awesome, incredible, and just superb. I remember when he ran it in the supercars. Of course, Adam, our supercar expert, will remember that as well, all too well. So, looking forward to it. Hendrick Motorsports is promoting its development driver, Corey Day, to a full-time ride for the 2026 NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series season. Now, Day will drive the number 17 Chevrolet with continued sponsorship from HendrickCars.com. During the 2025 season, the driver nicknamed Payday ran part-time in the Xfinity Series, soon to be known as the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Craftsman Truck Series, and the ARCA Menard Series. Now, in his 3 ARCA races with Spire Motorsports as well, they finished in the top 10 once in the spring race at Phoenix. He also ran 9 Truck Series races, earning 2 top 5 finishes and 3 top 10s, including a standout place performance at RIP. Day also ran 11 Xfinity races, scoring 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s with an average finish of 15.9. Now, throughout the year, Day had his fair share of growing pains across the board as the young 19-year-old driver continues to get more experience and pavement. Now, Day was discovered by the now 2-time Cup Series champion Kyle Larson on the dirt tracks, and Larson really wanted Hendrick to give the young dirt racing star an opportunity to make it in NASCAR. And we've seen Day competing in the high-limit sprint races co-owned by Larson himself and his brother-in-law, Brad Sweet. Now, with Carl Larson, Chase Elliott, and William Byron secure at Hendrick for the foreseeable future, the rumours will continue to swirl about Alex Bowman's future. In the last few years, we've seen rumours about the driver or that driver replacing Bowman. But if Day can excel in the O'Reilly series, he might be the driver to take over the number 48 Chevrolet in the future. In a statement, Day said that he learned so much in the NASCAR world in the past year and feels ready for the opportunity to race full-time in NASCAR. Team owner Rick Hendrick says that Day impressed them with how quickly he's adapted to pavement racing this year, and he believes that his future is tremendous due to his instincts and raw talent. The graphic courtesy there of Hendrick Motorsports. Matt, do you fear that Corey Day is being rushed up too soon given the pressure of driving for this organisation? And what would he need to do to prove to Hendrick Motorsport that he should replace Alex Bowman in the not too distant future?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it, Josh. 15.9 average finishing in 11 Xfinity starts isn't going to cut the mustard. It's going to be interesting next season in the Grand National Series, as I'm going to continue to call it, because we're going to have both Hendrick sort of development drivers in there for the season in different teams, with Corey, as we're talking about, and as we've mentioned last couple of weeks on the show, Raja Karuf. There's going to be a bit of a shootout between those two over the season, which is going to be an interesting sort of subplot throughout the year in the O'Reilly Grand National Series next year. But I don't know. I don't think that at this moment in time, if we stood here right now, you would say that they were making a huge mistake if they were going to get rid of Alex Bowman for Corey Day. There's a long way down for Corey to go, or even Raja as well, perhaps, if there was going to be one of those two guys that replaces Alex Bowman. I think Alex is fairly secure with what he's got. I've kind of been calling for his head for a little while because he has been left behind a little bit by his teammates over the last couple of years. Ally, of course, are well embedded on that 48 car and have been ever since Bowman got the ride when Jimmy Johnson stepped away to go IndyCar racing. So he's kind of being held hands by the sponsor to that car a little bit, but he does need to improve a lot going into next year, into 26. So that's one to watch in the Cup Series, but it's going to be interesting to see what we see out of these two young Hendrick guys in the second tier next year. I'm sure they're not calling it a shootout whatsoever, but you can be sure that people will be having eyes on both of their results from week to week.
No doubt yourself. You said you've been gunning for Alex.
Now I've mentioned it, I will be looking.
Now, on to a topic that's close to your heart as well, with the World Rally Championship. The 2019 World Rally Champion Tanak is retiring from full-time racing in the World Rally Championship at the end of the 2025 season. The Hyundai Motorsport Rally driver has entered over 170 rallies, won 22 races, and finished on the podium 58 times since making his WRC debut back in 2009. Now, Tanak said it wasn't an easy decision, but he felt like the time was right to pause, reflect, and dedicate more time to his family life back home in Estonia. Now, however, he wanted to make it perfectly clear that this is not a final goodbye from rally racing, but more a chance for him to rest, recharge, and refocus. Now, speaking of Estonia, the Toyota Gazoo Racing WRT team recently confirmed its lineup for the 2026 season, with the most notable signing being, of course, of Oliver Solberg, now who scored a shock victory back in Rally Estonia earlier this year, graphic courtesy of the World Rally Championship. Matt, this is your bread and butter. How shocked were you to hear about Tanak stepping away from full-time WRC competition? And are you thrilled to see that Oliver Solberg is getting this big opportunity with Toyota?
Second part of the question will be answered first. Oliver Solberg, brilliant news. Fantastic. Young guy that's been around the sport. Obviously, famous father, world champion in Petter. Was great to see him coming out on that one run in the big class earlier in the year in Estonia, and he blew everyone's doors off to win that rally, and it was sensational. And what could they do from there apart from to give him a full-time ride? And he's in contention to win WRC 2 as well this year. So if he can win that and go up as the champion, then a bit like, Xfinity Series champions going up and getting a cup ride, or Formula 2 guys, that kind of thing. It's the same kind of, or Moto 2. It's the same kind of deal. And we're going to get that with Moto 2, of course, next year. So great for Ollie Solberg to get that. And it was not his first rodeo in the full WRC cars because, of course, he was with Hyundai a few years ago and was perhaps a little bit too soon for him. Didn't have a great year and only lasted the one season and fell back down to WRC2. Tanak, though, on the other hand, I did not see this coming. This is big. So, of course, we've had Rovanperä over the last couple of years, won the championship a couple of times, went away, had his recharge, has come back for this season full time, and now he's decided, I'm kind of done. I've done my bit here. I'm going to go and see if I can get myself to Formula One. And we've talked about that. We're going to have Callie watch on the show throughout 2026 to see how he gets on in Super Formula. But Tanak going is big, really big, because he's still a young-ish guy. He's younger than me, so he's youngish to me. And he's still got much to give, and he's shown some brilliant turns of speed this season. Portugal earlier this year, where he was leading comfortably before he had a power steering failure, and then clawed pretty much all of the time he lost back to finish second, was a tremendous drive in the spring. And he's shown some other flashes of speed. There's been some accidents, of course there has, and Hyundai haven't had the car this year to take it to Toyota, who have steamrolled the championship, and we're going to find out which of their drivers wins the title in a couple of weeks in Saudi Arabia. Between Elvin Evans and Sebastian Ogier. But Tanak going, Rovanperä going, we're down to sort of 2.5 manufacturers and have been for a little while in WRC. It's worrying times for WRC again. This is not the first time over the last 15 years that we've been in struggle street for the WRC, because of course it was being held up by Citroen and Ford in the noughties when everybody else left the sinking ship before the regulation changes and stuff. So I worry for WRC at the moment. They're losing stars. Rovanperä going, Tanak going, Ogier's not got too much left in him. He might even win a 9th championship this year and might ride off into the sunset with that. But real worry for WRC that, it's expensive, it's time consuming for these guys. It's not just the 3 days of being in the car on the weekends of the event. It's a whole week's worth of event, recce, prep, press, all that kind of thing, testing. It's a full-time gig. Good luck to Wout Tanak. He says he's not fully finished, so I'm sure if he comes back, he'll probably come back and win, because that's the kind of thing he would do. But real shame and disappointed in ways that he's not going to be around next year. Interesting to see who they put in that car in his place. Again, up there with Neuville and Fourmeau.
Keep up to date with that here on the Grid Network, as well as we will bring you that update, because everybody loves a bit of World Rally Championship. Now, final story from me tonight. Nearly 2 hours before tonight's show, there was some breaking news from the Repco Supercar Championship involving several-time series champion Jamie Whincup. After serving as a co-driver since his retirement following the 2021 season, the Triple Eight race engineering managing director and team principal has decided to step down from his co-driver role from the endurance races with Red Bull Ampol Racing. Whincup will be replaced by Nick Percat, who will be Brock Feeney's new co-driver in the number 88 Chevrolet. Now, moving forward, Whincup will continue leading the team on the business and management side of things in order to make sure the sports car and supercar programs stay in good shape as Red Bull Ampol Racing becomes the Ford homologation team back in 2026. Now, Jamie's put out a statement saying, "I've always said I will continue to drive the car as long as we feel like I'm the best person for the job. The opportunity has come up where a leading main game driver in Nick Percat has decided to pursue a co-driver role, and we are thrilled he chose this team to do it with. I've absolutely loved my time with Brock and the 88 crew. There were people keen for me to continue on, but I've made the call that Nick is our best chance for success to team up with Brock for next season. I truly feel the driver lineup we have for 2026 will complement the rest of our superstar crew to give us the best chance to showcase what we do best. Now, I'm not saying Bathurst was my last race in supercar. At this stage, I will not be driving a Red Bull Ampol Racing car in the 2026 or 2027 Endurers, and right now we have no other plans but to continue to be a better managing director." Kobe's back with us for this bit as well. We'll start with you. What was your reaction to Jamie Whincup's decision to stand down from driving in the Supercar Endurers next year?
I think it's going to be a really strange sight not to see Jamie Whincup on the grid at all next year as a driver in the Repco Supercars Championship. This story, yeah, it came out of left field this afternoon. I was like, what? Like, I'm like, Jamie Whincup is really standing down. Like, honestly, I didn't think he had more than 3 more seasons left in him as a driver. I thought he would probably continue to compete next year and then the year after that, and then we'll see where he's at that point. But yeah, I was a little surprised to see this news come out when it did, that Jamie Whincup feels like that he's no longer the best guy for the job, Indies, Enduros, and I have to say, what an opportunity for Nick Percat, to get an opportunity in one of the top teams in the series. And if the switch from Chevrolet to Ford isn't a major issue for Red Bull Ampol Racing next year, I think, Nick Percat could find himself with a great opportunity to win, 2 races next year at the Bend, and then also the Bathurst 1000. So this is a great opportunity for Nick Percat as he steps back from full-time racing. But Jamie Whincup, if this is the last time we've seen him race a supercar, what a career he's had. He has nothing to be ashamed of. And as we know, as drivers get older, they obviously get slower, and they're not the driver they once were. And now that I really think about it, maybe we shouldn't be too surprised that Jamie Whincup has decided, to step away, because watching him at the Bend this year and then Bathurst, I noticed, he's not as fast as he used to be behind the wheel. I remember maybe about 5, 6, 7 years ago, Jamie Whincup, he'd be at the top of the time charts. And now, Jamie, he's still fast, but he's not that fast guy we saw, a handful of years ago. And then we also saw him make quite a few mistakes in Enduros behind the wheels all, and you could tell that it really took a lot out of him. And I think after Bathurst, seeing the comments he made in the media about his mistakes and all of that, it seems like that was the moment that broke Jamie Whincup mentally. And he had the thoughts going through his mind that's when he came to the realization that he's not the driver he once was. And usually when you see drivers see, that they're slipping in performance, and missing some of the little things behind the wheel, a lot of them, that's when it's time to, either step back or call it a driving career. And since Jamie's not as fast as he used to be, and the mistakes that he made, although he was still pretty good in the races, just those key mistakes that, end up costing them, a few positions or set them back just a little bit. Maybe Jamie felt like that, Nick Percat, as he said in his statement, gives them the best chance to succeed and win these enduro races. So yeah, we'll certainly miss Jamie behind the wheel if this is indeed it for him. But given how he's fallen in performance and the mistakes, I totally understand why he would feel like that it's time to make this decision and fully focus on running the team itself.
Yeah, big changes, of course, going on at Triple Eight Red Bull Ampol coming into next year with the Ford switch, and they're going to be the Ford homologation team, and there's going to be the Mustang Challenge Australia, which they're going to be kind of part building the cars and running and all that kind of thing next year. So a lot of stuff going on off track. But Adam, I'm sure, will have comments on this. 7-time series champion. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Kobe. It'll be weird not seeing Jamie as a co-driver in 26 and 7, one of the greatest drivers in supercars history. Absolutely agree. When I was really getting properly into supercars, it was the Whincup Lowndes Vodafone era at Triple Eight, and what an era that was. And 7-time champion, a handful of Bathurst wins, could have won more. The fuel race against Chazzy Mostert, the safety car overtake as well late in that race was the year after, a couple of years after, but he's not been anywhere near since. But Nick Percat comes on the market, and they've swooped for him, and they had to put him somewhere. They weren't going to get rid of Scott Pye. He's done tremendously with Will Brown. I guess that's going to continue on into the next couple of years in the other car. So big Jamie Whincup going. That might be the final time we see him behind the wheel again. A bit like the Tanak thing. He's done, but maybe not quite. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, another of the series greats to bow out. We're still going to have Craig Lowndes on the grid at Bathurst next year. There isn't going to be a day going without Craig Lowndes in a car at Bathurst. That you can be sure. And he's doing the 12-hour as well at the start of the year. So still going to have part of that combo on the grid next year. But Lowndes not with Triple Eight is going to be strange. And now Whincup not on the grid at all. What a world we live in.
Never thought it happened, really. It's a bit weird if we're looking at it. All the names you've watched growing up, and now they're all going. It's not exactly how I'd like to see it.
Just
Okay.
proves that we're all getting old.
Oh, God, I know. I feel old.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, thanks. Well, I'm going to hand over to you now, Matt, for the latest in the Grid EPI update. That's it from me this evening. And up next, we'll have from Kobe, and Omi will join the show. So, Matt, here's the latest with the Grid EPI update. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Josh. Thank you for that. And we will do what will be the third from last Grid EPI update of the season, because we only have 3 more races left to score. But it was a big one on Saturday night, already been talked about on the show. The Repco 8 Hours of Bahrain for the World Endurance Championship season finale. It's been a drought season for Toyota, but they came through in the end to win on Saturday night under the lights in Bahrain. Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Nick De Vries getting another win for the GR010 Toyota Hypercar. It was actually a 1-2 for the Toyota team to end the season in Hypercar. The GT race was also won by Toyota, but with a Lexus badge on the front. Petru Umbarescu, Clement Schmidt, and former Toyota Hypercar driver Jose Maria Lopez, the driving trio there for the RKSP Lexus team. The champions, of course, were decided, and as mentioned earlier, it was Ferrari that took the Hypercar class with the trio of Alessandro Pierguidi, James Collado, and Antonio Giovinazzi, the world champions. There they are after celebrating their title win on Saturday. And in GT, it was a win for Porsche. Ryan Hardwick, Ricardo Pera, and Richard Leitz coming home with the championship for Manthey. So split between Ferrari and Porsche across the champions in the WEC. We go again in WEC, of course, in Qatar at the end of March to kick off season 2026. Here is how the EPI grid table stands after the weekend. Not much change at the very top. Lawrence Vanfort continues to be fifth. He's the highest of the WEC guys in the grid EPI through 33 weeks. One major change is one of Vanfort's teammates, Kevin Estra, who was just behind him in the championship. You can see how close the points are from Vanfort down. Estra drops out of the top 10, and he's replaced by Super GT champion Shu Tsubai, who we talked about on the show last week after they clinched the championships at Motegi. Oliver Gray, still the young man from the European Le Mans Series, with his teammate Esteban Masson at the top of the EPI. Here's how the top 50 stands going into the penultimate weekend of the season. It is one of the crown jewels of the whole of the motorsport calendar, and we have Grid Endurance Performance Index races to talk about. The FIA World Cup for GT at Macau on the Guia circuit at the weekend. Expect absolute carnage across all of the Macau races, frankly, but we've seen some hellacious stuff in the GT races, of course, over the last few years. So there are scoring races this week. That is race number 149 and 150 of 151 for the Grid EPI of 2025, with just the Golf 12 hours to come scoring this year. Of course, there is the Asian Le Mans Series, which kicks off at Sepang in a couple of weeks' time. But just like the Grid ranking and its Formula E race pre-Christmas, those Asian Le Mans Series races will count towards next year's Grid EPI score. We'll probably talk about them on the show in a couple of weeks' time, just to kind of have something to talk about, but they will count for next year. And just a reminder, as we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Jamie Chadwick is still the top female by quite some way. She is 11th in the overall standings, and Renee Gracie is second in the female list, 273rd, the Australian GT AM champion. So that's how the female list lines up. We're going to continue to do that through the end of this year, and next shouldn't change too much. And in that sense, Jamie Chadwick will be the female champion of the Grid EPI. For 2025, we'll tell you what happened at Macau, how many red flags there were and stoppages, and perhaps rain delays, because there was a typhoon scheduled as well for that part of the world this week. So talk about all of that on the show next week. And now it is Kobe's turn. He has more headlines from the week.
Yeah, really looking forward to watching the Macau Grand Prix this weekend. Definitely one of my favorite quote-unquote off-season races to watch. As we know in motorsports, that's truly no off season because we always have something to talk about or something to watch. And next time for some more motorsports news from around the world. After making the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Championship 4 this year, Tyler Ankrum will return to McAnally-Hilgeman Racing 2026. Ankrum just completed a career best season, finishing 4th in points with the victory at Rockingham Speedway. Leona will return as the primary sponsor of the number 18 Chevrolet for 23 of 25 races next year, with 2026 set to be Ankrum's 3rd year at MHR. He'll look to build on this season that saw him have a chance to win the championship. Ankrum said he's super pumped to return because number 18 team has come a long way and thought it was a dream come true to make the championship 4 this year. Graphic courtesy of McAnally-Hilgeman Racing. 2024 Dunlop Super 2 Series champion Zach Bates will graduate to the Repco Supercars Championship in 2026. Bates will replace the retired Nick Percat at Matt Stone Racing, continuing the youth movement in the main game. He becomes the 5th rookie set to race in supercars next year, joining Job Stewart, Jackson Walls, Jaden Ojeda, and Rylan Gray. Bates returned to the series this year, and he's not having as much success. Current 11th in points. He also got behind the wheel of Triple Eight's super cheap auto wildcard entry at Queensland, the Ben and Bathurst earlier this year. Bates said this is a dream come true to be stepping up to full-time supercars competition, and praised Matt Stone Racing for his great history of working with young drivers. Photo courtesy of Supercars. Kyle Collette will move up to the NTT IndyCar Series full-time next season. The runner-up finisher in the 2025 Indy Next Championship will drive the number 4 Chevrolet for AJ Foyt Racing with sponsorship from Combitron's Amazonia, a Brazilian company. Earlier this year in Indy Next, Collette won 3 races at Road America and swept the doubleheader at Laguna Seca. He also finished on the podium 10 times and won 3 poles after coming up short to 2025 Indy Next champion Dennis Hauger, who will also be in IndyCar next year with Delcorn Racing. Collette said IndyCar is huge in Brazil, and he's looking forward to bringing the Brazilian flag back to the grid on a full-time basis. Graphic courtesy of AJ Foyt Racing. And despite experiencing some ups and downs this year in Formula One, Franco Colapinto is returning to Alpine in 2026. Colapinto will be back as Pierre Gasly's teammate, hoping another year at Alpine will help him return to the early form we saw from him in 2024 at Williams. Alpine decided to make the announcement last week in Brazil, since it's Colapinto's closest home race as a South American driver is from nearby Argentina. Colapinto said he knew it would be a huge challenge to keep his place in this sport, but he's grateful for Flavio Briatore and the entire team for believing in him to help drive them forward in the future. Photo courtesy of Alpine. With plans to retire from full-time racing in the Repco Supercars Championship at the end of the year, James Courtney will return in 2026, but in a different role as a co-driver for the endurance races. Courtney signed with Team 18 as the second co-driver alongside Lee Holsworth, who joins the full-time drivers Anton DePasquale and David Reynolds. The endurance role will be new for Courtney, who has been competing in supercars full-time since 2006. Courtney believes this is a full circle moment because he started his supercars career in 2005 as an endurance driver for the General Motors factory team, and with Team 18 receiving the new homologation status next year, Courtney's going to end his career with the GM factory team. So cool, full circle moment there for James Courtney. Photo courtesy of Team 18. Dragon Speed is switching cars and classes for the 2026 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season after competing in GTD Pro earlier this year and fielding a Ferrari 296 GT3 in a technical alliance with Risi Competizione that nearly resulted in a championship for the full season driver Albert Costa. Dragon Speed will run the Corvette Z06 GT3R next year in the GTD class, and joining the number 81 Corvette's driver lineup is longtime Dragon Speed regular Henrik Hedman, who wants to win IMSA's automatic bid to Le Mans in the LM GT3 class. Giacomo Altoe will be Hedman's season-long co-driver, with Casper Stevenson coming on board for the Michelin Endurance Cup races. Graphic courtesy of Dragon Speed. Jackie Herrera was named general manager of Chicagoland Speedway ahead of NASCAR's return to the mile-and-a-half oval in 2026. Herrera told NASCAR.com that she grew up as a longtime NASCAR fan who was born and raised in Chicago. She previously attended races with her dad during her childhood and knows the Joliet area from spending weekends with family members there. And for the last 3 years, Herrera has served as the director of community relations for the Chicago Street Race. Herrera said one of her goals is to make Chicagoland weekend the best race a NASCAR fan has ever attended, causing them to attend another race. Link to this article in the video description below, and graphic courtesy of Chicagoland Speedway. And some news coming out of the NTT IndyCar Series. Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing announced that they've re-signed Louis Foster to a multi-year contract extension to keep him in the number 45 Honda for the foreseeable future. And Louis Foster ended up he had a up and down rookie campaign, but he certainly had some highs. Winning his first career pole at Road America, and then finishing 11th at Road America, and also the Indianapolis 500 as well. And in a statement, Louis Foster said he's really happy to extend his contract with RLL because he believes that having that consistency and strong sense of security means a lot. And he said it's great knowing who you'll be working with for the next few years, as Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing tries to continue its push up the grid. Now we know 2 of the 3 drivers in the lineup. Graham Rahall's not going anywhere in the 15. Now you got Louis Foster in the 45. And in the number 30, that's where the question lies. Will it be Mick Schumacher, or will Devlin DeFrancesco come back for another year? So stay tuned for more on the number 30 seed at Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing, and the graphic courtesy of the team. And our last story for tonight, NASCAR unveiled the start times and networks for the races in the NASCAR Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Craftsman Truck Series as well. And starting with the Cup Series, the Daytona 500, the Atlanta, and then Circuit of the Americas after that. The first 3 points races are going to be on Fox. And then Phoenix, Las Vegas, Darlington, Martinsville, Bristol, FS1, and then Kansas and Talladega will be the last 2 Fox races before Texas, Watkins Glen, and All-Star race at Dover. That will finish the Fox portion of the schedule on FS1. And then from Charlotte to the new race in the San Diego Street Course at Naval Base Coronado, all of those races will be on Amazon Prime. And then from Sonoma through the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, all on TNT before the NBC portion of the schedule starts with Iowa, Richmond, and New Hampshire. That's going to be on USA Sports. There's a rebrand from USA Networks and be known as USA Sports next year before the Daytona summer race. That's going to be on NBC. And throughout the duration of the final 10 races, most of those races are going to be on USA. And in those last 10 races, the final 3 are going to be on NBC with Talladega, Martinsville, and the season finale as Homestead Miami becomes the new championship race once again. And some of the biggest changes that we're seeing in the Cup Series schedule for next year is an increase of the number of night races on the schedule. Obviously, you're going to have the Coca-Cola 600, in prime time under the lights, and Nashville's going to be on prime at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And looking at some of the other night races, return of Chicagoland on TNT, that's going to be a night race. 4th of July weekend at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Atlanta summer race is on at 7, and North Wilkesboro returning to the calendar as a points race. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then Richmond as well. USA, that's going to be at 7, and obviously Daytona summer race, and then the Southern 500. That's just going to be a lot more night racing in the Cup Series in 2026. And then when you look at the Xfinity Series, all of those races are going to be on the CW, and then the Truck Series, most of those races are going to be on FS1, minus, I believe, 2 races. As of right now, the inaugural race on the streets of St. Pete, that's going to be at noon Eastern time on Big Fox. And then the second Fox race is going to be in the fall when the trucks race on the Charlotte Roval at 5 p.m. Eastern time. That's also going to be on Big Fox as well. And graphic courtesy of NASCAR. That's all of the headlines I have for you this week. So I'm going to turn over to Matt for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Plenty of nighttime races for NASCAR means plenty of weeks off of doing commentary for me because it's absolutely far too late for us here in the UK. Pick a winner. It is coming down to the crunch in this. We have 12 points left to play for between now and the end of the season. You can get your picks in for this weekend's races using the hashtag Pick a Winner, as you can see on screen across all of the Grid Network TV social media channels. Tanner has bowed out of a chance to win at the weekend. He was still in contention going into last week's races, which was Portimao GP and the Brazilian Grand Prix stuff, of course, as well. So it's down to the 3 of us, myself, Kobe, and Matt B. There's 12 points left. I'm 10 behind. I'm clinging on. I can still win this. We have 2 races to pick for this evening, which is the sprint race for the final round of MotoGP, which is at Valencia. We're going to do that first, myself and Kobe anyway. And of course, we can change these picks all the way up to the start of the races if we choose to do so. Valencia could be anyone's race at Valencia. There's no long straight, really. I'm going to pick Fabio Quartararo to pick up a sprint win on Saturday on the very well turning Yamaha, which doesn't go very well down the tubes. So Fabio, my potential pick for the sprint in Valencia in Spain on Saturday. Kobe, who are you going with?
Well, I'm not going with Fabio Quartararo, but that was quite, but I was a little surprised by that, Matt. But who knows what could happen? Mark Marquez not in the field, and that would be great for Fabio to end the year with a victory. Given it's been quite difficult for him these last few years on that Yamaha. But I think I'm gonna go with the safest pick for now and see where the weekend falls, how they do in qualifying. I'll go with Alex Marquez to take the sprint race.
Yeah, I was close with Acosta last week for his in the sprint at Portimao. Didn't quite happen, but we'll see how that fares over the weekend. Second one to pick for tonight is the first part, and this is a strange saying, the first part of the Sandown 500 for supercars, which used to be 500 kilometers straight through it. Now it is 250k races this weekend, the penultimate round of the Supercars Championship. 5 races to go in their season. Sandown, we talked a lot about Red Bull on the show tonight. The man that's in charge of the championship is going to win the first race, I reckon. My pick for Saturday is Brock Feeney.
And I'm gonna go with a driver who's carrying a lot of momentum into Sandown after sweeping the last round of the Gold Coast. I think Chaz Mostert's gonna get it done in race 1, and maybe if he does that, Brock Feeney will start to sweat a little bit. Given this new finals playoff system they have in supercars, Chaz Mostert, this system may be his best friend to try to close the gap to Brock, who's had a phenomenal season. But right now, it seems like Walkinshaw Andretti United has plenty of momentum as we get deeper into this postseason.
Indeed, I would love Chaz to win, frankly, but we'll see. Adam is going with Alex Marquez, and he's also going with Brock for the first race. So there are your 4 points available this weekend: 2 for MotoGP, Sprint and Grand Prix, the final round of the season in Valencia, and 2 supercar picks for the 2 races of the Sandown 500. Use the hashtag #PickAWinner across all of the Grid Network TV social medias on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, and everywhere else that you can find us, or drop your picks in the comment section on this or the pre-weekend video that'll be up on the YouTube page as well at the weekend. To finish the show, of course, we always have Hots and Knots, and to bring in for Hots and Knots, he's been standing by for the last hour, is Omi. Hello, my friend.
Hello, yes. Time for Hots and Knots. Enjoyed this last week. So looking forward to being back and doing some more now.
What have you got for us? Because it was plenty on over the weekend for a November weekend.
There was. I think we'll start with the Grand Prix. I think we have to start obvious. Verstappen. I think, what else am I meant to say? Absolutely brilliant. All the way from the back to the podium. We actually, in the commentary box, also believed, so this is kind of a nod as well. We also kind of believed there was a shot. If he stayed out, he could have won it, because Lawson, he did like 54 lap on those mediums and still got 7th. And we were all like, well, if it's Verstappen versus Norris, we know who we're picking in terms of defending as well. And when a race win is on the line, we know Verstappen can always pull out the goods. So it was absolutely brilliant. But I think all of us had this little taste that, we don't usually get to see Max going from the back. So I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity that we didn't actually get to see him go for the race win there.
He's done plenty of things in his Formula 1 career. He hasn't won from the pit lane yet. It has never been done. Second is the best. That's the 3rd time someone's come second from the pit lane in a Grand Prix. So, yeah, Max, definitely a hot. Ollie Behrman is a hot. Brilliant driving. That has to be best of the rest, basically, on Sunday. We didn't see much of him on TV, but he was always in that sort of 6th, 7th, 8th area, depending on where the pit stops fell. And I thought he drove really well to be the best of the rest, considering I know Ocon started from pit lane, but he was nowhere all weekend, and Behrman was brilliant, I thought.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I used Lawson as an example. I'm going to go with him as a hot as well. Great job from him, and he's really starting to come alive, which I'm really liking to see as well. So yeah, Lawson, great job, defended, had a 7-car train at the end, didn't we? Everyone all pushing each other through those final few corners in what was a close finish. So yeah, brilliant defensive drive. The new Minister of Defence, it looked like, out there on the circuit, Liam Lawson.
The New Zealand Minister of Defence. Also, we just have to say congratulations to Lando, because that was peerless drive, and he's perhaps got 3 fingers on the trophy. Well, I wouldn't say a one hand on it yet, but still things could happen, especially with Vegas. Next, hot to Marco Bezzecchi for winning MotoGP. That was another brilliant ride from him in Portugal. And if Aprilia keep going the way they're going, maybe that Bezzecchi can hold the brightest candle to Marc Marquez next season, which will be an interesting all-Italian Ducati versus Aprilia battle for a MotoGP next year. Any more hots, or can we switch?
Well, I'm going to quickly dart back to the Sao Paulo Grand Prix weekend,
Okay,
and I'm actually gonna go with well, some of the chaos that we had on Saturday was quite wild. I thought it was quite wild. Now, I guess this will kind of be a not as well for me. I wasn't quite. I think the racing is concerning me. Now we're getting to the end of the regulation, but if we look at the sprint race specifically, it was so tricky to overtake. You had around a circuit like Brazil, which has been glorious for us in the past, it was really, really difficult to overtake as well. So it's kind of good that we are getting to the end of these regulations, and hopefully next year can bring some of the action and can bring some of the pushing as well.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how all that plays out. Let's go with Adams quickly first before we dive into our knots. He says hot Macau Grand Prix this weekend. Max starting from pit lane and finishing third in Brazil, and Kimi Antonelli career best second. Yeah, that's worthy of a mention, isn't it, for Kimi to have a good weekend. Hello to Denver. He says what's hot, just finding out David Coulthard and Scott Speed will be doing demo laps in an RB13 at the Adelaide Street Circuit at the finale. Yes, that's cool, isn't it? We get to see a Formula 1, well, there's a Formula 1 car back on the streets of Adelaide, but that has happened relatively recently when they have the Adelaide Motorsport Festival on the short circuit. So we have seen Formula 1 cars down there. But yeah, going to be nice to see F1 cars going around at a Supercars weekend. The first time that's happened since Liam Lawson, wearing Max Verstappen's helmet, drove a Red Bull at Bathurst a couple of years ago. It was Liam Lawson. Not now. Last year in Brazil at the Grand Prix, someone didn't make the start in a very embarrassing way. This year in Brazil, he made it 3/4 of the way around the first lap before he embarrassed himself again. And that man is Mr. Lance Stroll. Terrible. And poor old Gabby Bortoletto, who had one of the biggest shunts we've seen in a long time on Saturday, was the innocent bystander of someone driving like this on Sunday, and that was Lance Stroll on the first lap. That's my ultimate knot from the weekend, was again Lance Stroll in Brazil.
Yeah, and I'm gonna actually stick with the same day, but in terms of a knot, I think a lot of the huge shunts that we actually had on the day. Now, of course, we know about Bortoletto, but Brazilian F4, which was in support, had quite a lot of chaos, especially in their race 2, where we actually had a T-bone accident, and Nobles, Ethan Nobles, who was actually meant to be competing in Macau this week, has had to withdraw due to being involved in an incident. And I think from what he said, it's going to put him out of racing for a few months. So it was quite a big shunt. It was quite a big shunt where he was battling. He lost the car, and then drivers on the racing line coming, and they go into the side of him. And then later on, at the end of that race on the Saturday, we had a car flying upside down. We had a lot of big incidents for the Brazilian F4 race. So, yeah, I think Saturday was just a day of carnage and big incidents, but lucky to not walk away with anything major. And yes, we do send our best wishes to Nobles, and hoping that he can have a quick recovery and get back to racing quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely hot that you are all over the support categories as per normal of a Grand Prix. Also hot, of course, that most of the predicted absolutely typhoon Noah's Ark weather stayed away over the weekend in Brazil, and we got away with it, unlike last year, which was just disastrous. Any more? I think I'm out. I think my only knot was Lance. Mr. Owen says not the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, not the race, the name. No, you're wrong. You're wrong, Matthew. The Brazilian Grand Prix is owned by the city of Rio de Janeiro, because they bought the rights to the Grand Prix and then went, oh yeah, we don't have a track to host it on. which is why the Sao Paulo Grand Prix is the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. That contract, I think, has still got 3 years left on it. So we're still going to have a few more Sao Paulo Grand Prix before we get the Brazilian Grand Prix back at Interlagos in its rightful place. Any more from you, Omi, or can we hand it to Kobe to take us home?
Trying to think, but I guess we can also mention Jenson Button's last race, of course.
Yes.
Well, yes. So
absolutely.
That's one. So that's quite sad, I think. But a great way. I saw he had his interview and everything was done quite well. But yes, congratulations to him on a absolutely extraordinary motor racing career.
Yeah, we send our thoughts to Jenson, and he hopefully will be more fixture, should I say, in the Sky team on TV next year, because he's got less racing of actual cars to do. So yeah, that's pretty much us done. Thank you to Josh. Thank you to you, Omi, for goal hanging basically until the end of the show before Hots and Knots. And Kobe, just over an hour into this thing, is going to take us home.
Yeah, and taking a look at our upcoming schedule, as you know, it's the off season, so we actually don't have much here at Grid Network. Sunday, Grid Live Wrap-Up will be on the air at noon Eastern Time, recapping the MotoGP season finale at Valencia, and also the Supercars race weekend at Sandown. And please continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach our milestone of 1,700 subscribers. We're now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. Hit the bell icon to get the notification so you'll know when we go on the air. Follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com, and consider taking 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, and our newest Patreon supporter, Crystal, who all invest each month in the Grid Network. We encourage you to join these fine folks who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. Link in the video description. And if you want to make a one-time donation, click on the Buy Me a Coffee link to get your name on the board and invest as much as you want. And consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they'll thank you here on the air. For Omi and Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Kobe Lamb. Thank you all for watching. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.